Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Jason Khalipa, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited for our conversation today. Matt Boudreau introduced us, and if you haven't listened to that episode, it is one of my favorites. But I do have a good feeling that this will be too. So thank you for being here. And I would love for you just to kick us off by introducing yourself to the audience, telling us a little bit about your family and all the incredible work that you do.
Yeah, I guess based on what this podcast is about, right? I'm a husband, I'm a father. I was introduced to the fitness space at a really young age. I've owned and operated gyms for a long time, been in the fitness space, an entrepreneur there. I competed professionally in CrossFit. I'm deep in the jiu-jitsu space. I also compete in shooting sports. I have two children, a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. I met my wife at 14, and yeah, I love to compete. I love to get after it. I love to help people through the fitness space. I host weekly free men's club workouts. Um, and yeah, that's it. But most importantly, I'm a dad. That's it.
Oh, I love that. And when I looked at your website, I loved that the first thing that it says is father, husband, protector, provider. I just think that's amazing. And I think it should be, top of the priority list. So thank you for that. And thanks for teaching that message.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're going through a big revamp with a lot of this stuff that we're doing too, is because when I first got in the fitness space, I started in the conventional gym, then I opened up CrossFit gyms, and I did that for about 20 years. And the last 2 years or so, I've been deeply pulled into just helping men. And so we started a company called Train Hard, and all of it is going to be revamped. About 2.5 years ago, I started hosting these free workouts in a parking lot. And from a company perspective, we were focused on like an app, a digital app. But then I realized like what we really needed to do is just get back to fundamental basics of just getting guys in a parking lot shoulder to shoulder. And so we're revamping everything we're doing just to lean more into that. Cause that used to just kind of like be like my little thing that I was doing on the side. Now as a business and as like a mission of mine, I want to grow these men's clubs all over the world to connect guys shoulder to shoulder. Cause I feel like we've never been more connected, and we're just so disconnected at the same time. So that's what I'm doing.
That's amazing. I think it's so important now more than ever. And, there's a lot of noise right now, I think, with social media too. We're just being fed messages left and right. It's honestly unavoidable at this point. So getting that real kind of connection is so important. And, that's something that I preach to dads when it comes to their relationship with their daughter as well. And just teaching your children that there's life outside of the screens and the phones, and really ensuring that they are set up properly for, especially if it's, your young daughter and she's going to become a teenager one day. It's important that she recognizes what real life actually is. And that's playing outside and playing sports and connecting with your family with no distractions. So,
Well, I think that's one of the biggest issues we have right now. If you talk about the enemy, right? There's an enemy trying to attack all men. And the enemy could be many different things, right? And you could use this term as the devil, as the enemy, whatever you want to call it. Just something that's getting you off the path of being the best husband, the best father, the best leader you could be. And a new enemy, I was just talking about this actually the other day with someone, is social media and your phone. Before we didn't have that distraction. Now we do. And not to say that 100 years ago we didn't have other distractions or other things going on. But the point I'm trying to make is that we need to be mindful of how you could be with your family and still be not being present. And I think that I don't want to look back and be like, damn, I spent, X amount of hours with my kids before they went off to college. And half the time I was distracted on my phone. So that's something I try and be very present and mindful of.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important for dads to recognize that daughters and women can be storytellers. And a lot of times when we are experiencing something, we're telling ourselves a story that might not be at all what your intentions are. But for example, when you're on your phone and we're trying to talk to you and you're kind of answering like, oh, yeah, sounds good or whatever, but you're looking at your phone, the story that we hear and that we're telling ourselves is we're not important enough. You don't value our time and attention. And that can spiral into our own understanding of who we are and our self-worth. And I think it's so important, especially, when your daughters are young and you think, oh, she doesn't get it right now. She's a young girl. Well, she's picking up on all these cues and she's creating her own narrative. And then when she is a teenager and she's facing all these other kinds of challenges, those micro moments where you're not paying attention because your phone or other devices matter so much. They become amplified in those later years. So, um, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a really important thing for dads to remember because it's obviously not intended poorly, right? Like you're not trying to do that at all, but there are negative consequences for just being distracted all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that, when it comes to TV or I always think about football, right? Because there's a lot of men who love to watch sports, and I think that's great. I am such a big fan of not stopping the things that you love to do, but finding ways to invite your daughter to be a part of them. Because if you ask your daughter, "Hey, do you wanna come watch football with me? It's football Sunday." Now she feels included. Even if she doesn't wanna watch football, this barrier that's in her head gets shattered, and now she feels like she's a part of it. So, going back to your story and, your life path, especially related to your family and your daughter, you and your family have dealt with something that is one of parents' probably greatest fears, in their entire lives, and I really love how you've turned the outcome into something positive, not only for your family, but for all the lives that you've impacted through philanthropy. Would you mind touching a little bit more on Ava's story and the mindset that you had to have, and really the mindset that you had to teach your family throughout that time in order to stay strong?
Yeah, my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia in 2016. And since then, there's been some other stuff that's came up, and I think that you learn a lot in these situations. You learn how to have empathy. You learn, I mean, there's just so many. There's a ton of different takeaways about being positive, about understanding what's in your control. But I think as a dad, when you get that type of information, you realize you quickly realize where your priorities need to shift to, and it allows you to connect in a way, especially with your spouse. If you guys can really communicate well, it could really for us in our family, it really helped my wife and I even get closer. I mean, we met at 14, so we were already really like we grew up together, but nonetheless, that really drew us closer. And then it really just taught me, a lot about life and about what was important. And especially at a relatively early age. My daughter was diagnosed when she was 4 or 5 years old. I was like 29, I think, at the time. And so, I've been able to keep that with me over the last 10 years about those learning experiences, about staying connected, about just being focused and having a lot of gratitude. And just, I think the perspective shift alone when you go through something like that is just so powerful that you don't wish it upon anybody. But I do think that it drives a silver lining if you look at it through the right lens. And so I learned a lot about that. And I still take that to this day. I drop off my daughter almost every day at school, and she's about 30 minutes away. And the type of conversations we have, the type of relationship we have, I think a lot of that stemmed from the months and months and months that we spent in the hospital together, because I really tried to reflect on it every day and say, "Hey, am I showing up as the husband, as the father that I want to be? Am I showing up? Am I present? Am I reaching my potential in these areas?" And I just continue to ask myself that, and it's paid off, because now our relationship, I think we have a strong relationship. She's 14, so it's hopefully it'll stay that way forever.
Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, I mean, those are the foundational years where when you do put in that work and you set the foundation of closeness and you're spending time with her in the car and you're having these high impact conversations, it does tend to pay off later. So
Yeah.
I think you've yes, you've set the foundation properly.
Hopefully, hopefully, yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
mean, you learn
so.
a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, no dad, I mean, look, I think any dad that ever listens to, any dad that's listening to this show, right, needs to realize that, like, nobody's gonna be perfect, never, ever, and I think that I've learned a lot over the years through a lot of very difficult adversity. I think that the only thing that I think about on a regular basis is, how am I doing? These micro check-ins. And I think that every dad needs to have micro check-ins. If you don't have them, I think you could really slip up. Because if you have like if you ask yourself while you're sitting in a sauna, going for a morning walk, doing your workout, hey, how am I doing as a husband, as a father, as this, as that? And you start kind of, oh, shoot, I could be better over here. You can make these micro check-ins that and adjustments that can get you back on course. But if you kind of don't reflect on that for a while, that rudder can take you off course pretty dramatically, and it's hard to get back. And so I think just kind of having that regular check-ins, whether it's with your spouse, with yourself, is a nice way to see, hey, how are we doing? Where can we navigate this? How can we communicate better? What can we do? And then all of a sudden you kind of get back on course. Then you might shift off course, you get back to course. And I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's really easy just to wake up and live and your course is kind of made for you. There's enough jobs out there that allow you to just kind of be in the wheel and not really pull out and think about what you want to do or what kind of impact you want to have or how you want to show up in your marriage or your family. So it is really important to take a moment and reflect on that. I think that's great advice. And when it comes to your marriage and when I say your, I mean collectively, like men. I think it's another thing that's really important that I love to talk about on this podcast because, you know, it's important for you as a man to feel good in your marriage, but also for your daughter's sake and looking up to you and looking up to the kind of love that you have and knowing that that's what she wants. I mean, a lot of young girls look up to their parents and aspire to have what they have, or they learn from those kinds of interactions. And I think it's just a really important relationship. But I do hear from fathers that a lot of times after kids come into the equation, the marriage becomes a lot more challenging and they struggle prioritizing their marriage. So I would love to hear from you any advice you have on setting the bar and setting expectations for your daughter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty straightforward. Your daughter is going to end up marrying what she sees, right? And you got to lay the framework for that every single day now because you can't just like change things 10 years from now. And so I think it's a big responsibility. I think for me, it's like constantly pursuing my wife. Constantly pursuing her, constantly trying to do everything in my power to date her, to make her feel loved and wanted and pursued. I think women, they crave that, they need that, they want to know that there's attention being given there. Concurrently, right, I think men wanna be told that, "Hey, they're doing a good job," right? And I think that women and men, obviously, they every guy, every girl is different, but in general, right, women and men, they think different, they act different, they look at situations different. One of the things I think about a lot lately is the idea of responding like, with tone, right? So if my wife comes to me and she says something to me like, "Hey, I'm not feeling well," right? The tone that she's using is like, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. What she doesn't want from me is for me to respond with some logic or some component to make her to try and solve all her problems. She just wants me to respond with a feeling. So if she shares a feeling, I should respond with the feeling. Hey, you don't feel well. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you feel that way. Is there anything I can do to help you or whatever? Versus your wife saying, "Hey, I don't feel good this morning," and then you say, "Well, that's because you went to bed too late last night, you drank too much last night," whatever it was, right? Like, they're not coming to you for like a logic, and I think that's something I've been reflecting on a lot lately, is this idea of responding tone with tone. That's been really helpful for me. But back to the heart of your question. I think the number one thing a guy could do is go on dates at least once a week with their wife. Period. Like, full stop. I think that if you're not doing that, it gets harder when you have kids, and when you have kids, there's so many obligations you have, and life gets busy. And if you don't prioritize your relationship, all of a sudden your kids get older and you realize you don't have anything there. And then then what happens when they leave the house? What are you guys going to talk about? So I think dating is so important, and I would encourage all dads to take the initiative, right? To message and like, "Hey, we're going at this place at this time. This is what we're doing. We're doing it on Wednesday. I already got a babysitter, whatever it is." And just like show that assertiveness because at
Mm,
least for me and my relationship with my wife, like she loves that. And it's not something that comes natural for me. It's something that I have to really I have to think through. And that advice came from a nurse the night our daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. She advised us to keep our date nights. And that advice has been super powerful for us. I think
mm.
it's done nothing but like amazing things for our relationship. Because you start communicating about things that aren't just about the kids. When you're in the house, it's all about the kids. and life. When you get outside the house and you go for a date, you can start really just kind of enjoying each other's company.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the responding to tone with tone. I think that's really interesting. I actually was just talking to my husband about that kind of framework the other night, and I was like, if I said something that's more logic based, that's when I guess logic would make more sense. And then I kind of paused for a second, and I was like, when do I ever talk about logic? And he was like,
Yeah.
never,
Right.
never. It's like always emotionally driven, and it's not like emotional attacks or anything that I'm bringing up. It's something similar to what you said, where when I'm coming to him for advice, a lot of the times I'm really looking for a hug or like him to understand me or to make me feel better in that given situation. I'm not actually looking for the solution. And it's funny because he and, men in general tend to see the solution so clearly. It's like, oh, just, this or just do this.
Yeah, it's not what you wanna hear.
Exactly, and it's like,
Yeah.
and then I leave when the conversation ends or whatever, I'm feeling, like, empty or like nothing was solved in my case, even though he gave me the blueprint for exactly what I needed to do or how to, solve this feeling or whatever, but, it's just so funny because yeah, we are so emotionally driven and we are wired so differently than men. And I think it's just really important for men to even acknowledge that. I think your life becomes easier once you say, oh, we're different. You know what I mean?
And then when your daughter grows up, you realize it even more because they
Yeah.
can't regulate it as well, right? So,
Yes.
having a 14-year-old daughter, you start to realize like, oh, like you gain perspective, right? That women's brains just think completely different than men's, and not in a better or worse way, just completely different. And that's okay. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thing. I love all the differences, and I've loved learning more about men's brains too, and just it's improved our relationship because I'm understanding my husband more, even
Yeah.
though we've always had a great relationship, and we're certainly, we got married in March, so I'd say we're probably in like the easy phase, right? I know that there's hard things that will come, but things are great, and they're just getting greater the more that I learn and the more I talk to him about these things, and we have conversations about how we think, and it's really fascinating. And one thing that I was going to bring up based on your response on just continuously dating your wife, I read Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and one of the things that stood out the most was the way that we keep score differently. Are you familiar with this?
I'm not. No,
Okay,
I know the
so
book, but yeah.
yeah. So basically, so men and women keep score differently in terms of like relationship points. And for women, men get a point on basically any action that they do. So whether they buy you flowers, take you out on a date, tell you how beautiful you are, buy you a piece of jewelry. So it could be, a really extreme gift, or it could just be, you're so beautiful. I love you so much. But we need them constantly. And so our point score just kind of like disappears at the end of the day and it starts fresh. So that's why constant kind of communication and gestures, opening the car door, taking out the trash, reminding us that we're amazing mothers and whatever, these kinds of things add up throughout the day. And then again, just we need them constantly. And then that's why men sometimes, they'll be so shocked if their wife or their girlfriend says, we haven't gone out in so long, or you haven't done this in so long. And they're like, oh, but, last month we just did that thing. And we've completely forgotten. We haven't forgotten about it, but our emotions in this present state are only felt based on like the last 24 hours. And so that was really interesting. And so you get 1 point equally across the board for everything. And then for the way women get points for men, this was so interesting to me. We basically get points when we don't react to something. So it's like if your man is driving and he takes a wrong turn, don't react and you get 20 points. And it's like this really interesting dynamic because I was really excited to read about, what are the things that I could do for my husband? Is it make him dinner or tell him I love him? And it was none of that. It was just like basically let us lead, let us be men and be who we are in a beautiful way. And you get points for just kind of being by our side. And I was like, that's really interesting. Do you have any
Yeah, I mean,
thoughts on that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to like read the book and understand it more. I think that ultimately what a guy needs is um he needs a champion in his corner. He
Mhm.
needs someone who's his ride or die all the time, like,
Mhm.
who's got your back. Life is gonna be hard. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, if you're starting businesses, if you're having kids, if you're trying to do all these different things, you need someone there who no matter what is going on in your life, like she's got your back. And I think that if you look at through the terms of like every guy needs a queen. You need someone who's just there. And I think that when you have the support of a really wonderful woman, it'll unlock a man in ways that they never thought possible. And I actually I have empathy for the men who haven't been able to find that in their life, right? Because I feel like once they found it, man, it would just unlock something in them that would give them drive, purpose, and fulfillment that they never felt before. And so that's why I look at it. I mean, I was great. I was very lucky that I found that at a young age, but I know many people it takes them longer to find that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important point, and it just goes to show you, relationships are two ways. It takes two, and I'm speaking to men on this podcast and how they can show up in the relationship. But even maybe voicing that to your woman can be really enlightening because if she knows that's what she needs to do and that's how she needs to show up, then maybe she can support you better in that way.
Well, I mean, I think
So,
communication's key, right? With your kids, with your
yeah,
wife, with your spouse. And I think, it's interesting, and congratulations on recently getting married. And I think it's so
thank
important
you.
that even from the get go, right, is that you have good communication because life is going to get hard. It will. Like
Hmm.
right now, it's probably the easiest it's ever going to be for a relationship is right after you get married. Once you have kids, once you have this, once you have complexity, and I'm saying this in general, it just adds more layers, but if you could build a good framework and foundation, then you could build off of that, and you can actually lean into adversity, and it actually brings you closer than actually separates you apart, and so but I think the key for that is, again, communicating and getting a better understanding of like, "Dude, just, hey, what do you need from me?" Right?
Hmm.
And how can I provide that to you? And then vice versa, and I think that if both people do that, it's wonderful, and the same thing with the kids, right? Having good communication with your daughter about like, "Hey, how can I serve you? How can I be here to support you better?" That's something I've been trying to do a lot better lately is just, these kids, they're smart, right? They're not stupid and they know they need different things. And so I think just being what you think they might not actually be what they need or what they want. And I think just having good communication with them is a great place to start. And it just builds on it just snowballs, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think of a woman's communication style as kind of like the iceberg. And usually you guys just get kind of the tip of the iceberg, but we're feeling and thinking all these other things.
yeah,
And it takes you asking the right questions, like you are, saying, how can I support you better? That's how you uncover what's actually underneath the surface. And so that's really great advice. And, I have to give my husband a lot of credit too, because I used to, when we were just first dating, I wouldn't bring things up that were maybe bothering me or I was thinking about. And I just was not very good at communicating because I didn't want to start a fight or anything. And I was really proud that, we had been together a year and a half and had never fought or anything. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't thinking about things and wanting to bring things up. And he was really the one who pushed me to talk about how I was thinking, what I was feeling, and really open the floor for communication. And our relationship has only grown so much stronger because, I mean, half the things that I was thinking weren't actually what he was thinking. And, I would assume things that he was thinking or why he was doing certain things. And it was really just so eye-opening to have these honest conversations with each other and realize, oh my gosh, like I'm actually so far wrong about this whole situation. And it's refreshing to know that, but it takes the communication. And honestly, it's really helpful for the man to, if there is a lack of communication, to basically open the floor and allow permission to speak freely and ask those right questions, like you were describing now. But it really has been a game changer for us.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. It's like perspective, detaching from your own perspective, looking at through other people's. There's this idea of detaching from your emotion, your ego, and your perspective, right? You detach from that for a moment and you just kind of take a deep breath and you say, wow, what is this person feeling at the moment? Like my emotions are getting in the way right now. My ego might be getting in the way. My perspective, how can I look at it through somebody else's lens? And I think if you detach from those things, you just like take a deep breath, it'll really help you in different situations that come up. And as you get older, right, your perspective should continue to shift. And if you're a young dad, your perspective looks like something. And then all of a sudden, dude, as your kids get older, man, just things start to, I mean, I know a lot more at 40 than I did when I was, starting a company at 21. It just, a lot has changed. And I think that's a good thing. That's the way it should be. But I think the more that you're open minded to it, the more you try and like reflect and take a deep breath and say, hey, am I looking at this through the right lenses? That's the way you grow. And you're never going to get it right all the time. But at least that's my goal is to
Yeah.
try.
Yeah, that's a great principle just throughout life in general, right? With work, with relationships, with family, with everything. I think that's yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. The perspective shift too, like, I mean, that's what the hospital really leaned into for us, right? I mean, when you're thinking you're having a bad day and you show up in a hospital and it helps you to realize like everybody's got something going on and you don't know what someone else has going on in their life on that day and just be mindful of it. It's the same thing with your spouse, the same thing with your children. Like, they're going through their own things and how can you be there to support them? And then the more you support them in return, they end up supporting you in really phenomenal ways. But it's got to be a two-way street and it can't just be like this expectation without also giving it at the same time.
Mhm. So I would love to chat about your book, As Many Reps as Possible. What was the inspiration behind the book? And also, I'm curious to hear about maybe how some of the lessons of the book actually translate to fatherhood.
Well, I think for the mindfulness piece, probably, so I wrote the book in 2019, I think it was. It was a while ago. And I wrote it because I wanted to donate funds to pediatric cancers. My wife and I, really, really support charity for. But I wrote it because, I was looking for a way to optimize my life. And when I thought about CrossFit with as many reps as possible, when you're doing a workout, you're very present, you're very focused on it. That's when we got the best bang for the buck. Like when you're doing burpees, you're not answering your phone, you're not getting distracted by social media, you're just being present and focused. And so I started asking myself, how do I be as present and focused in all areas of my life? Because, at the time we were opening locations internationally. We had just had a daughter. I was competing professionally still in CrossFit. And I realized like I'm kind of one foot in, one foot out in everything I'm doing. I'm not being present, not being focused. And that's not the way for me to get the best results. And so I started embracing this mentality called the AMRAP mentality, where you kind of take something you're doing, like right now, having a conversation with you, and I'm going to AMRAP it. I'm going to be as present and focused with this as I can be. I'm not distracted by anything right now. I'm just looking at you. And then when I'm done with this, I'm no longer going to really think about it. And I'm going to move on to my next thing. And so it's this whole idea of like, figure out what you're focused on, work really hard at it, switch gears throughout the day, and you'll find ways to optimize. So that same thing, I guess you could take in with your kids, right? Is that when you're with them, right, you're trying to optimize that time together. And I think about that a lot right now. My daughter's 14 and almost 15, and she'll be getting her license soon. And this is like really, really like on my mind right now. That every time I get in the car with her to go drive her to school, it takes me an hour round trip. And I'm trying to be as mindful as I can that, dude, those are gonna be gone in like, what, a year? She'll get her license, and then I would only wish that I could get that back. There's this old saying, like, you're gonna hold your daughter's hand for the last time and, like, enjoy every time you have that, or you're gonna carry your daughter for the last time, right? Without it being some kind of emergency or whatever, and you don't think about it until it happens, and then you look back, you're like, "Oh, damn, my daughter doesn't want to hold my hand anymore." And frankly, at certain ages, it gets a little weird. And you're like, but at one point, it was like the most amazing feeling in the world. So, anyways, that's something that I've been reflecting on a lot is how can you be as present and as focused as you can? And that's the AMRAP mentality. And so I wrote the book to fundraise for charity, to be mindful. And I'm grateful that I had embodied that mindset before I even got sick because it allowed us to have financial hedge, fitness hedge, and relationship hedges where we had had good, strong abilities in these areas because we had been present and focused on them. So that's the mindset that I would say has kind of taken shape in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's great. I think I mean, they say presence is the best present, right? And it's so true. I think 5 minutes of pure presence with your daughter means more than hours of distracted time. It really is so valuable, and it's time is the one thing that you can't get back, and so really being deliberate about how you're spending it, means everything, and I'm sure people who take on that kind of, framework will see success throughout their entire lives, whether it's work, relationships, family, even eating, diet, exercise, all the things. It just being present and being focused and clear and intentional, all those things are just so important. And I think again, we talked a little bit earlier about today's world and how it's easy to be distracted, and it takes intention to do exactly what you're talking about. And it takes reflection and setting goals and being really present. And no, I just think that's more
And
important than
surrounding
ever.
yourself with good men too. Like surrounding yourself with
Yeah.
good men is a really easy way to level up. And I think
Yeah.
we've lost that as a society. You know, if a guy asks me what should they do tomorrow to level up, I'd say they need to exercise every day. Period. They have to. Because if you don't exercise, you can't protect, provide for your family. You can't run, jump, climb, lift. You can't provide experiences because you're not physically capable. Like that sucks. Like you should be working out. Okay. Roger that. You should be eating foods that are appropriate. You should be removing the crutch that might be holding you back. Like if you're drinking too much, dude, cut it out for a month and then re-add it in moderation. Like if it's holding you back from where you want to go, just cut it out for 30 days and then reintroduce it the way you want. Okay, got it. And then I would say is you got to go find a group of like-minded men who are all on the shared path of becoming the best husbands, fathers, and men they could be. And when you find that, you're gonna open up your mind in ways you didn't go in there thinking, right? Like this men's clubs I've been doing, we have 100 guys in a parking lot every weekend, and we go grab coffee after. And the conversations, they don't start off as like therapy sessions. They don't start off talking about certain things, but eventually over time you create relationships with people and you start realizing like, man, like this guy, like he's pulling me up right now. Like he's teaching me things. Like I'm growing, and then maybe I'm sharing something with him, and then we're growing, growing, growing. This tribal mentality we've gotten away from as men, where there used to be this idea where you would share knowledge, especially with the youth. There would be this tribal knowledge that you would share when you're all around the, for lack of a better term, a campfire. We've lost that, right? We've lost that ability to share. And when you get a group of men together, you don't want to be the weakest link. You want to be the one who's getting pulled. You want to pull other people up. And so I think the more that we could do as a society is connect men, the more it's going to be beneficial for everybody else because they're each going to hold each other accountable in their own way to be the best versions. You know what I'm saying? And we lose that
Absolutely.
when we self isolate.
Mm.
The biggest problem that men are facing right now is self-isolation. They're going through a lot of different challenges and they're self-isolating, and that's not the solution. The solution is to connect with like-minded men, and they're going to find that, dude, other people are going through the exact same thing, and let's talk about it and let's level each other up.
Yeah. No, that's so important. I think, women are natural communicators with other women.
For sure. You
We
guys do
talk
a great
about
job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I talk to my sister almost every day, if not, yeah, twice a day, both of them, and my friends too, and we just tell each other almost everything. And for men, yeah, you guys are missing that element and it doesn't come as naturally to you, but there's still something so important about getting in person, connecting with men, sharing knowledge like you mentioned, and being there for one another, supporting each other. I think that's so key.
Well,
And
here's
then
a great question for you.
yeah,
Like, check this out. I think your audience, the men might like relate to this. When is the last time that you and your girlfriends went to breakfast, lunch, or dinner or drinks with no business intention? Like, when's the last time? Like, you and a friend, you and a girlfriend.
yesterday and the day before and the day before
Gr-
that.
Great, great. Okay. Now, if you ask most men most of the time, now I'm an exception because I just got back from Tennessee. I went out there and I actually went and sat and had lunch with my friend. I'd say 99% of the men listening to this podcast right now have not had an engagement with another man for breakfast, lunch, anything in months, maybe even longer, because men do a terrible job of that and women do a phenomenal job of that. Men need to have some type of purpose behind their visit. So, what I mean by that is, dude, every single day I work out with men, every day. Every single day I'm around men all the time. But there needs to be something to it. Like, okay, we're going to go meet for a workout. Oh, and then we'll grab a coffee after. Okay, great. But I wouldn't just say, hey, John, you want to go meet me for lunch? It's like that just doesn't happen. But
Mhm.
women do a great job of that, and during that time, they share best practices. They lift each other up. They do all the things. I think men need that like excuse to meet to feel like there's like a purpose to it. Otherwise, they
Mm.
feel like there's no need to do it. Like I don't know, your husband, does he regularly go and like just meet guys for non-business related, or does he go and play basketball with them? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it's usually sports, like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, that's so
S
interesting.
So if you could disguise basically what we're trying to do with the men's club is we're disguising lifting each other up as a workout. And that's really what it is, right? It's a workout because we break down the barriers, we get fit. I mean, all the benefits of fitness that we
Right.
know, and then boom, grab coffee. And that's it.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I think, one of the things that I did 2 days ago that, I was referring to is I'm on a tennis team with all these women, and I'm one of the social chairs, so we plan these parties, but we plan them quite frequently, right? And so we did a Friendsgiving the other night, and it's so great because I'm surrounded by these incredible women who, most of them are mothers, and so I'm learning a ton. They are sharing knowledge. We were talking a lot about when I'm having kids, babies, parenting advice, all these things that are great for me to know. And and we just talked about a lot of fun things outside of work and whatever. And I think for men, finding a sports team or a gym or some sort of group of men doing some sort of activity is a great place to start. But like you said, those kinds of conversations don't necessarily happen like as you're training, right? You're not like lifting weights and talking about your family usually. It takes something afterwards, but connecting the two is a really great way to make it a seamless transition and not something that feels kind of awkward or foreign to men.
Yeah. I mean, the way we do it right now is like we throw down for 45 minutes at 6 a.m. and then, hey, bro, you want to go grab a coffee? Like, it's not like a weird thing. It's like, hey, you want to go grab coffee? I'm gonna drink coffee anyways on a Saturday morning. And by the time we're done, we get back to our families by 7:30, right? Because we're done. So we go 6 to 6:45. We grab coffee for 20, 30 minutes, and then boom, we're back with the family. And it doesn't impact our sports, it doesn't impact anything. I just think the more I even talk about it, like on podcasts or discussions, the more I realize like just how clear it is to me that men, as soon as they stop playing these sports, they lose like this brotherhood and this connection that they had. Like all of my, basically all my best friends came either through like from college activity or high school sports. And I imagine most men listening to this feel the same way. So it's like if you're lacking that in your life, I think finding a group of men to go work out with is a great next step.
Totally. Yeah. And my husband joined a local softball league too, which has been so much fun for him. And they go grab beers afterwards or
Same idea.
before. Yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. I think, yeah, looking for those kinds of opportunities is a great way to connect with other men. So I love that advice. And Jason, something that I'm continuously kind of hearing you say is that you do hard things and you're not afraid to do hard things. And I want to touch on this because I think it's important for men in terms of their happiness and fulfillment to do hard things and to set that example. And,
I have
you
to.
know, yeah, yeah. And I think it's easy these days to optimize your life for ease, right? Like we can all Postmate dinner. It'll be here in 20 minutes, whatever you want. You can hop in an Uber, you can go anywhere. You can communicate with somebody on your phone from all over the world. Everything is so accessible these days, and you have to intentionally put yourself in a situation to do hard things, but the growth that you see from it is everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like men and if you use the term soft, right? Like if we've became soft because we have so many comforts around us, I'm in an air conditioned and heated house. I get in a vehicle. We've lost this idea of like doing hard things. And I think for a man, like we thrive doing hard things. We thrive when there's a challenge and we overcome it. And we thrive when we have purpose. And I think that it's so funny the way it's like kind of evolved over the years because I hope that we see a pendulum shift back that, you know, men have been put in this box where there's something wrong with like being a guy. It's like, dude, being a guy is it means you're showing up. You're a good man. You embody the characteristics of someone who could lift, run, sprint, fight if needed, but you're also compassionate, caring, loving. Like you could be all of these things as a man. That's what you should be. And you should be embodying those things for your daughter so that she looks at that and says, one day, I'm setting the standard for what one day my daughter marries, and so every day I want to uphold that. And doing hard things, in my opinion, is probably the best way to channel that because you learn how to overcome microdose of adversity, right? That you're intentionally putting yourself into. You learn how to overcome hardship, which again, life is gonna come and kick you in the nuts. So you got to be prepared. I just feel like tomorrow morning, every morning I wake up, I do what I call BCB. So it's Bible, coffee, burpee every day. And I think if more men just started waking up in the morning 10 minutes early and doing some burpees, it would probably impact their life in a more meaningful way than they could possibly think because they're intentionally choosing to do hard things. And men need to be ran. Like my son, he will act out unless we run him. He's like a German shepherd. We have to run him, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that even me as a grown man, if I'm not being ran, I'm not gonna show up as the most compassionate, loving, whatever. I'm gonna be anxious. I'm gonna be aggressive. That's not what we want. So go do hard things. Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I feel fired up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that yeah, it's so important and I see my husband doing hard things all the time and I admire him so much for it. And I see what happens when he doesn't. Like, it was raining and his tennis got canceled and then so but he put himself through a harder workout because of it, and he's always just trying to level up and even he started his own company this year, and that's been a huge challenge to set everything up. And I've just been watching and in awe of everything. But I think able to show up as the best husband and the best future father. I mean, we're talking about kids all the time, and I I respect him so much for it, and he really does embody all those things. So not that I'm, I guess I'm just chatting about how much I love my husband, but I really think this is so important, and it translates to so many other things. It's not even just you; it's how you show up to your family. That's what I was trying to kind of get at there, and how you show up in other relationships in your work. And
Again, for me, every single day. Like I'm a pretty regimented person in that sense. Um, because I know that if I want to do the things, so like the thing that I reflect on is like, I'm gonna do the things I know I need to do to feel the way I want to feel. Right. So if if I wake up in the morning and I don't exercise and I go watch TV or whatever it is, like later on in that day, am I going to feel the way I want to feel? But if I prioritize waking up early to exercise my body, my mind, and it just makes me like walk back into the house with just a super positive energy. And that's why I think that above all else a dad can do is just go do that because they're going to bring an energy that's so much more positive even if they went for a walk in the morning to jumpstart the day, and man, that momentum, those points you put on the scoreboard just start to, like, just go throughout the day. You know what I'm saying? Like if I started
hmm
off my morning and I didn't start off right, let's just say I was like, whatever, in a crummy mood. Well, what does that do for the rest of the family? Right? You're probably going to bring a negative, crummy mood to the rest of the family as well. Oh, there goes my camera. Hey, I'll turn it back on. But you know what I mean? That's
yeah,
all I'm saying.
yeah. No, definitely. I think that's incredible advice. And I know we're coming up on time here, but you've given so much to this conversation. But if you have one more final piece of advice for all the dads with daughters out there, I would love for you to share.
I mean, well, aside from exercising, no,
Yeah.
I would say, um, if you're a dad with a daughter, be mindful of what you say and how you say it, right? Especially when it comes to food, especially when it comes to beauty, looks. Be mindful. There goes my camera again, but be mindful of that, right? Be mindful of that because they're they're listening to what you're saying and you don't want them to take it out of context. So just always be mindful when you're discussing things like that because they're paying attention to everything you say.
Absolutely. Your words become our inner narrative.
That's what it is.
Love
There you
that.
go. That's a
Yeah.
great way to put it. I like that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And being mindful of that I think is really important. I've learned that, I've communicated around that, and that's been a really big impact on my life is understanding that you don't mean any ill intent with some of the things you say, but you need to be super mindful, especially at the ages of like, you know, 6 to 12, super mindful of like every little thing because like you said, right? It becomes this inner narrative. Like if I do something, "Oh, I'm beautiful doing this," but does that mean I'm not beautiful doing this? If
hmm
I look great in this dress, I mean I'm not pretty over here? It just becomes this whole thing, and guys don't think that way, and I think we need to be mindful of that, especially raising young daughters.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I can't wait to get this out there.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.